Welcome to the Sleepy City Travelers channel. Tonight, we embark on a journey through one of the most remarkable stories in American history, the story of Chicago, a city that began in mud and rose, literally rose toward the sky. Let yourself settle in, relax, and drift as we explore the incredible engineering feat that transformed a swamp into one of the world's great cities. Chicago began as a low-lying marshland. Picture this landscape, flat, endlessly flat, stretching in all directions, water pooling in shallow depressions, grasses swaying in the lake breeze, and growing everywhere, in the damp soil, wild leeks. The indigenous peoples who lived here first, who knew this land intimately, called it Chickagua. The word refers to these wild leeks, or as some call them, swamp onions, small plants with a sharp, pungent smell when crushed, growing in abundance, thriving in the wet earth. This was Chicago's first identity, not a city, but a smell, a plant, a memory of wildness. The earth here was soft, yielding. When you stepped, your foot sank. Water seeped up around your boots. This was not solid ground, not the kind of foundation you would choose to build a city upon. But cities don't always choose their locations rationally. They grow where rivers meet, where trade routes cross, where geography creates opportunity. And so Chicago grew. Despite the mud, despite the water, despite everything suggesting it shouldn't be here at all. By the 1850s, the city faced a crisis. Think about what it means for a city to face a crisis of its very foundation. Chicago was so low, so close to the water table, that the streets were often knee-deep in mud. Not just after rain, not just in spring, often, regularly, predictably. Imagine trying to conduct business, to build a life, to create civilization, when simply walking down the street meant slogging through thick, clinging mud that sucked at your boots, that splattered your clothes, that made every journey an ordeal. And drainage. Drainage was impossible. Water had nowhere to go. The city sat too low. Gravity, that patient, constant force, couldn't pull the water away because there was no away that was lower. Sewage pooled. Waste accumulated. Disease festered. Something had to be done. But what? How do you fix a city built in the wrong place? The engineers of Chicago, practical men, innovative men, decided on a solution so audacious it seems almost impossible even today. They would physically lift the city, not move it, not abandon it and rebuild elsewhere. Lift it, an entire urban center, raise it up by 4 to 14 feet. Let that sink in, 4 to 14 feet. Imagine your home, your street, your neighborhood being lifted more than the height of a tall person while you continue to live in it. This was achieved using thousands of massive jack screws. Picture these devices, heavy iron screws, thick as tree trunks, with long handles extending outward, each jack screw capable of lifting tremendous weight, but only slowly, only incrementally. One turn at a time, one fraction of an inch at a time. And these jack screws were operated by teams of men working in perfect synchronization. They had to turn together at exactly the same rate, or the building would twist, would crack, would collapse. In 1858, a test, a demonstration, a half-block of brick buildings on Lake Street. Not small buildings, not lightweight structures, buildings weighing 35,000 tons. 35,000 tons. Picture that weight, more than you can truly imagine. The weight of thousands of elephants, the weight of a small mountain, and these buildings were raised, lifted smoothly, carefully, without a single window pane cracking. Think about that for a moment. Glass is fragile, windows crack from temperature changes, from vibrations, from the settling of a building, and yet here, buildings being lifted by jack screws, thousands of tons being elevated, and not one window broke. The precision, the care, the skill required is almost beyond comprehension. Most remarkably, most incredibly, businesses stayed open. Life continued. Customers walked in and out of shops as the buildings slowly rose beneath their feet. Can you imagine walking into a store to buy fabric or flour or nails, conducting your transaction, walking out, and the building is slightly higher than when you entered, so gradual, so smooth, so controlled that life didn't need to stop. Commerce didn't pause. The city continued functioning while it transformed itself. The Briggs House Hotel, a substantial building, was lifted while guests were still sleeping in their beds. Unaware, completely unaware that they were being elevated toward the sky. They went to sleep on the ground floor and woke up, well, still on what they thought was the ground floor, but now several feet higher. Imagine the absolute smoothness required. No jolt, no sound, no vibration strong enough to wake a sleeping person. Just a steady, imperceptible rise. The raising of Chicago established something crucial. It established the city's identity as a place where engineering could conquer nature, where the impossible was merely difficult, where the audacious was simply the next project. Chicago would not accept the hand that geography had dealt. Chicago would change the rules, would rewrite reality through determination and innovation. Now, let us look at the buildings themselves. The early architecture was primarily wood-framed. This wood framing used a technique known as balloon framing, and this technique, this seemingly simple innovation, was invented in Chicago. Before balloon framing, buildings used heavy timber frames, massive beams joined with complex carpentry. This required skilled craftsmen, took enormous time, used expensive materials. But balloon framing was different. It used smaller, lighter lumber, 2x4s, nailed together in a framework that rose from foundation to roof in one continuous structure, like a balloon rising into the air. This allowed houses to be built quickly, cheaply, by workers with less specialized training. Chicago needed to grow fast. Balloon framing made that possible. The city's first permanent residence built along the Chicago River. This river, winding through the flat landscape, was the reason the city existed here. A connection between the Great Lakes and, eventually, the Mississippi River system. The water of this river was a deep, murky olive green, not the clear blue of mountain streams, not the brown of sediment-heavy rivers, but olive green, a color that spoke of still water, of organic material, of a river that moved slowly through flat land, gathering rather than rushing. Beneath the city, beneath the buildings and streets and the lives being lived above, is the soil, a thick layer of blue clay. This clay was left behind by retreating glaciers thousands of years ago. Picture those glaciers, massive sheets of ice, miles thick, grinding slowly across the landscape, scraping bedrock, carrying stones and soil. And when the climate warmed, When the ice melted and retreated northward, it left behind this clay. Blue clay, dense, heavy, waterproof. The clay compressed under its own weight over millennia, becoming almost as hard as stone. This clay, this glacial gift, was later harvested, dug up, shaped, fired in kilns at high temperatures until it transformed. It became the Chicago common brick, a buff-colored brick, not red like Eastern bricks, but a warm, yellowish tan. This brick defines the look of the city's older neighborhoods. Walk through certain parts of Chicago even today and you see it. Walls of buff brick, alleys paved with it, the color of clay, the color of earth, the color of glaciers melted 10,000 years ago. Early sidewalks were made of thick pine planks, wide boards laid side by side. These created a surface you could walk on without sinking into mud. But they had a particular quality. They echoed. When you walked on them, especially in boots, they produced a hollow thud, a resonant sound, each footstep announcing itself. The sound of a frontier city, the sound of temporary infrastructure, the sound of wood on air, on empty space beneath. This sound would have filled the streets, the rhythm of pedestrians, the percussion of daily life. Then came 1871, the Great Chicago Fire. We must speak of this. On October 8th, in a dry autumn, when everything was parched and ready to burn, a fire began. We don't know exactly how. Perhaps a cow kicked over a lantern, perhaps not. But however it started, it spread. And these wooden structures, these balloon-framed buildings, these pine sidewalks, they burned. The fire destroyed nearly all of these wooden structures. 4 miles of the city, block after block, neighborhood after neighborhood, everything consumed. The fire left a blank slate. Everything that had been built, the homes and shops and churches and hotels, gone, reduced to ash and charred timber. But a blank slate is also an opportunity. The world's greatest architects would soon look at Chicago and see not a tragedy, but a canvas. A place where new ideas could be tried, where the future could be built. One of the few survivors of the fire was the Chicago Water Tower. This structure, built just before the fire, was made of different material, not wood, limestone, a Gothic revival structure with pointed arches and decorative details. It looks like a miniature sandcastle, fantastical, almost fairy tale-like, standing somehow untouched amid the devastation. The water tower is made of Lemont limestone. This is a local stone, quarried from nearby Lemont, a yellow-hued stone. Run your hand across Lemont limestone and it feels cool. Always cool, even on hot days. And it feels chalky, slightly rough, porous. You can feel the individual grains. This stone absorbs water, which is why it survived the fire. The stone stayed cool, refused to crack in the heat, stood firm while everything around it burned. After the fire, post-fire laws were passed. These laws banned wooden buildings in the city center. Never again would Chicago's core be built of combustible materials. Architects were forced to look toward stone, toward brick, toward materials that wouldn't burn. This constraint became liberation. It forced innovation. It required thinking about buildings in new ways. The burnt district covered 4 miles of the city. In the days following the fire, survivors described the silence, eerie and absolute. A city that had been full of sound, the hammering of construction, the rumble of wagons, the calls of vendors, The general noise of urban life, suddenly silent. Just wind moving through ash, just the creak of a few remaining walls. Silence as complete as the destruction. But rebuilding began almost immediately. Chicagoans didn't wait, didn't hesitate. Within days, within weeks, construction was underway. And the debris from the fire, the broken bricks, the charred wood, the rubble of a city, this wasn't just hauled away and forgotten. It was pushed into the lake, into Lake Michigan, creating new land. This debris became the foundation for what is now Grant Park, a park built on the remains of tragedy, green grass and trees growing on the ashes of the old city, the lakefront breeze. This breeze is famous. Chicago is called the Windy City, though perhaps not originally for its actual wind. But the name stuck because the wind is real. Lake Michigan, one of the Great Lakes, a massive body of water, creates weather. Cool air moves off the lake, especially in summer. This breeze provided a natural cooling system for the early masonry buildings. The thick stone walls would absorb this coolness, would stay comfortable even when the prairie to the west baked in the sun. Natural air conditioning provided by geography. The city's layout was a strict grid system. North-south streets, east-west streets, intersecting at right angles, perfectly regular, perfectly orderly. This wasn't aesthetic, this was practical. A grid is navigable. You can't get lost in a grid. You always know where you are. And amidst the chaos of growth, amidst the constant construction and reconstruction, the grid provided stability, provided order. No matter how much changed, the grid remained. The Chicago River originally flowed into Lake Michigan. This was natural, logical. Water flows downhill, and the lake was lower than the land. But this created a problem. The river carried waste, sewage, industrial runoff, and it deposited all of this into the lake. Into the same lake Chicago drew its drinking water from. The same lake that was supposed to be pure, clean, life-giving. So engineers decided to reverse the river. Think about that. Reverse a river. Make it flow backward. Not through dams, not through pumps, but through canal construction and subtle manipulation of water levels. They would make the river flow away from the lake, toward the interior, toward the Mississippi River system. This was a quiet, slow-motion miracle of hydraulics. No dramatic moment, just careful engineering changing the geography of the continent. The river that had always flowed east now flowed west. Waste that had polluted the drinking water now drained away toward the Gulf. Early Chicago bridges were swing bridges. These were elegant solutions to a particular problem. The Chicago River needed to allow ship traffic. Tall masted ships needed to pass, but the city needed bridges for pedestrians and wagons. So engineers designed bridges that rotated. They pivoted on a central pier, like a door on a hinge. When a ship approached, the bridge would swing open, rotating silently, smoothly, creating a clear channel. The ship would pass. The bridge would swing closed. Traffic would resume. A dance between land and water, between commerce and transportation. By 1880, by the time we reached the end of this first chapter, Chicago had transformed completely, utterly, from a muddy outpost where wild leeks grew in swampy soil to a dense, stone-clad metropolis. The streets were raised. The buildings were brick and stone. The river flowed backward. The lake was protected. The grid was established. The blank slate left by the fire had been filled with innovation, with architecture, with ambition. The city was waiting for its next vertical evolution. The buildings were still relatively low, still hugging the earth. But soon, very soon, Chicago would begin to rise in a different way. And that story, that remarkable story of architectural genius, begins now. The Chicago School of Architecture emerged in the late 19th century. This wasn't a physical school, not a building where students learned. It was a movement, a philosophy, a way of thinking about what a building should be. And at its heart was a simple idea, deceptively simple, revolutionary in its implications. Form follows function. The shape of a building, its appearance, its decoration, should all emerge naturally from its purpose. Nothing unnecessary, nothing merely decorative, every element serving the building's true nature. Louis Sullivan, often called the father of skyscrapers, a man who believed a building should be organic, should reflect the spirit of the people who would use it, should grow from the earth like a tree, rising naturally, inevitably, beautifully. Sullivan looked at the steel frame, this new technology, and saw not just a way to build taller, but a way to express something fundamental about modern life, about progress, about democracy. Sullivan's buildings are famous for their terracotta ornamentation. Look closely at a Sullivan building. The surfaces are alive, covered with intricate carvings of leaves, seeds, vines, geometric patterns that seem to grow and flow. These aren't random decorations. They're carefully designed systems, mathematical, organic, expressing the building's energy, its life force. The terracotta catches light and shadow, creating depth, creating movement, making the building breathe. Terracotta was preferred for many reasons. It was fireproof, crucial after the Great Fire. It was lightweight compared to stone, reducing the load on the steel frame. But most remarkably, it could be molded into delicate, swirling shapes. Shapes impossible in stone. Wet clay pressed into plaster molds, dried, fired until hard as rock. Each piece unique, each surface bearing the mark of human hands, of artistic vision, of craft meeting industry. The Auditorium Building, designed by Sullivan and his partner, Dankmar Adler. This building was once the heaviest building in the world. Think about that. The heaviest, the sheer mass, the weight pressing down on the Chicago soil. It required a massive floating raft of iron and timber beneath it, not driven deep like later buildings, but spreading the weight over a huge area, like a boat, floating on the blue clay, distributing its tremendous load so the building wouldn't sink into the soft earth. Step inside the auditorium. The interior features thousands of electric carbon filament bulbs, early electric lights, not the harsh white of modern fluorescence, but warm, glowing, casting a golden amber glow over the gold-leafed arches. The light reflects, multiplies, fills the space with warmth. You can almost feel the heat of those bulbs, see the slight flicker, the organic quality of early electricity. The arches seem to glow from within, as if the building itself is luminous. Daniel Burnham, the city's master planner, a man of grand vision, he famously said, and these words echo through Chicago's history. Make no little plans, they have no magic to stir men's blood. No little plans. Dream big. Think in terms of decades, of centuries. Create something that will inspire, that will endure, that will make people feel they're part of something greater than themselves. Burnham's Rookery building features a light well in the center, a void, an empty space running through the heart of the building. But this void serves a purpose. Natural sunlight filters down through a glass ceiling, travels through the open space, reaches the lobby floor far below. In an era before powerful electric lights, this was crucial, bringing daylight to the interior, creating a space that feels open, airy, connected to the sky even while surrounded by walls. The Rookery's lobby was later redesigned by Frank Lloyd Wright. Wright, who would become famous for his own revolutionary designs, added white Carrara, marble and gold leaf to brighten the space even more. Carrara marble, imported from Italy, the same marble Michelangelo used. White, luminous, almost glowing. The gold leaf catches every ray of light, reflects it, amplifies it. Wright took Burnham's vision and refined it, lightened it, made it shimmer. The stairs in the Rookery are made of cast iron and marble. They wind in a perfect, silent spiral through the heart of the building. Cast iron, molded when liquid, cooled into intricate shapes. Marble treads, smooth, cool under your feet. The stairs rise, curve, disappear upward into shadow, each step the same, predictable, yet the spiral creates endless variation as you climb, as the perspective shifts, as the light changes. William LeBaron Jenney, a name that should be better known. He is credited with designing the first building to use a complete steel frame, the Home Insurance Building. This changed everything. Before this, tall buildings needed incredibly thick walls at the base. The walls had to support all the weight above. The taller the building, the thicker the base walls had to be. This limited height, limited design, limited possibility. But the steel skeleton changed the rules. The frame, the internal structure of steel beams and columns, carried all the weight. The walls became just a skin, a curtain. They didn't need to be thick, didn't need to be load-bearing. This was revolutionary. This was the birth of the modern skyscraper. The transition from iron to steel was a quiet revolution. Iron had been used, but it was brittle, unpredictable. Steel was stronger, more reliable, could be shaped more precisely, could span greater distances. And this steel frame allowed for the curtain wall, glass and terracotta, or later, aluminum and glass, hung like a skin on the frame. The building's structure and its surface became separate, independent. Each could be optimized for its own purpose. The Monadnock building represents the end of an era. Its north half is the tallest load-bearing masonry building ever constructed, ever, the last of its kind. A monument to a dying technique. Its walls are 6 feet thick at the base, 6 feet. Imagine that. Walls thicker than a tall person is high. All that thickness just to support the weight of brick above. This creates a sense of immense, quiet strength. The walls feel permanent, eternal, like they could stand for 1,000 years. The Monadnock features a jelly roll cornice at the top, a subtle curve in the brick. The building doesn't just stop abruptly. It curves outward gently at the top, then curves back, like a wave frozen in brick. This makes the building look like it's growing out of the ground. Organic, natural. Despite being 14 stories of brick stacked with mathematical precision. Holabird and Roche, another key firm in the Chicago school. They specialized in the Chicago window, a three-part window design, a large fixed center pane flanked by two smaller venting panes. This design was perfect. The large center brought in maximum light. The smaller side windows could be opened for air, and the repetition of this window pattern across a facade created a rhythmic, grid-like pattern, orderly, predictable, beautiful in its regularity. These windows allowed for maximum light and air, before air conditioning, before powerful ventilation systems. This mattered. Natural light meant less need for gas lamps or early electric lights. Opening windows meant fresh air, cooling breezes from the lake. The building worked with nature, used what was freely available, functioned efficiently. The Reliance building was a precursor to modern glass towers. Look at it. The facade is made almost entirely of white terracotta and glass. More glass than wall, more transparency than opacity. It was designed to look cloud-like and light, a stark contrast to the heavy stone buildings of the past. This building seems to float, seems weightless, as if it might lift off its foundation and drift away. Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie style emerged in the Chicago suburbs. Wright looked at the landscape around Chicago, flat, horizontal, the prairie stretching to the horizon, and he designed houses that echoed this, emphasizing horizontal lines that mimic the flat landscape of the Midwest, long, low, hugging the earth, not reaching toward the sky like the downtown towers, but spreading, extending, connecting to the land. Wright used overhanging eaves and low-pitched roofs. These create shelter, create a sense of protection. The roof extends out, far beyond the walls, creating covered outdoor spaces, shade in summer, protection from rain, a transition zone between inside and outside. These deep overhangs create dramatic shadows, strong horizontal lines, a sense of shelter and intimacy. His Rohe house uses long, thin Roman bricks. These bricks are narrower than standard bricks, longer. This emphasizes the horizontal even more. But Wright went further. He required the horizontal mortar joints to be colored to match the brick. This hides the vertical lines. When you look at a Wright wall, you see continuous horizontal bands. The vertical joints disappear. The wall seems to flow, to move, to extend endlessly. The stained glass in Wright's homes is often called art glass, not religious imagery, not representational scenes, but geometric patterns of clear and colored glass. These patterns frame the outdoors. When you look through a Wright window, you're not just seeing the world outside. You're seeing it organized, composed, turned into art by the geometry of the glass. The trees outside become part of a composition, nature and design working together. The sound of a Wright home is muffled and quiet. He designed these houses to lead the inhabitant toward a central hearth of massive stone. The fireplace, the heart of the home, is always prominent, always central, made of rough stone, heavy, permanent. The rooms radiate from this heart, and the materials Wright chose, the plaster walls, the wood trim, the thick rugs, all absorb sound, create quietness, create spaces for contemplation, for family, for peace. These architects, Sullivan, Burnham, Wright, Jenny, Holabird and Roche, they weren't just designing buildings, they were inventing a new language, a way of thinking about how humans should live, should work, should exist in cities. They looked at new materials, new technologies, and saw possibilities, saw beauty, saw the future taking shape in steel and glass and terracotta. Chicago became a laboratory, a place where ideas could be tested, where failure was acceptable because innovation mattered more, where clients were willing to take risks, to try something new, to commission buildings that had never been seen before. This was the golden age, the moment when architecture became modern, when the future arrived. And now, we move forward into that future, into the age of the true skyscraper, into buildings that would redefine what was possible. The first skyscraper is a title often debated. Historians argue. Architects claim precedence, but most agree it was Chicago's home insurance building in 1885 that proved the steel frame was the future. This building demonstrated conclusively that you could build a skeleton of steel and hang everything else on it. The walls, the floors, the facade, all supported by this internal framework. This was the breakthrough. This was the moment the skyscraper became possible. This frame allowed architects to build higher than the 10-story limit of traditional masonry. Before steel frames, 10 stories was about as high as you could go. The walls at the base would be impossibly thick. The weight would be too much. But with a steel skeleton, height became almost unlimited. 10 stories, 20, 30. The sky itself seemed to be the only limit. The Marquette building features a lobby decorated with shimmering glass mosaics. These mosaics depict the journey of Jacques Marquette, the French explorer who traveled through this region centuries before the city existed. These mosaics are made of thousands of tiny pieces of Favre glass. This glass, created by Louis Comfort Tiffany, has an iridescent quality. It changes color as you walk past, as the light hits it from different angles. Blues become greens, golds become oranges. The figures in the mosaic seem to move, to shimmer, to come alive in the soft light. The Manhattan building was the first to achieve 16 stories using a purely skeletal frame. 16 stories. A towering achievement for 1891. This building proved that the steel frame wasn't just a theory, wasn't just experimental. It was practical, reliable, safe. You could build high, and the building would stand, would be stable, would last. But building high created new challenges. The vibration of the city's L train, the elevated train, became a problem. This train, running on steel tracks elevated above the street, created constant vibration. Buildings near the tracks would shake slightly, continuously. This vibration could damage structures, could crack walls, could make buildings uninhabitable, so engineers developed deep caissons. These are concrete pillars that go down deep into the earth, sometimes as deep as 100 feet, drilling down through the blue clay, through softer layers, all the way to bedrock. Solid rock, unmovable, eternal. The building rests on these caissons, which rest on bedrock. The vibration from the train, absorbed by the earth, never reaches the structure. The building stands firm, silent, unshakable. The Wrigley Building, clad in 250,000 tiles of gleaming white terracotta, each tile individually shaped, fired, installed, together creating a facade that gleams, that catches light, that seems to glow even on cloudy days. This building was designed to be a beacon of cleanliness in the smoky city. Chicago in the early 20th century was dark, industrial. Coal smoke filled the air. Buildings were stained, blackened. But the Wrigley Building stood white, bright. Clean, a statement of optimism, of purity, of hope. At night, the Wrigley building is illuminated by a complex battery of searchlights, powerful lights aimed at the white terracotta, making it glow like a mountain of ice against the dark river. The Chicago River flows past, reflecting this glow. The building becomes a lighthouse, a beacon, visible for miles, drawing the eye, impossible to ignore. Across the street, the Tribune Tower. This building was the result of an international design competition held in 1922. Architects from around the world submitted designs. The winner, a neo-Gothic tower, vertical, soaring, decorated with Gothic details, flying buttresses, pointed arches, gargoyles, a medieval cathedral reimagined as a modern office building. The tower is famous for having stones from world monuments embedded in its exterior walls. The builders sent correspondents around the world to collect fragments, a piece of the Parthenon, a stone from the Great Pyramid, a fragment from the Taj Mahal, Westminster Abbey, the Great Wall of China. These pieces, built into the tower's facade, create a physical connection to history, to human achievement across centuries and continents. The Tribune Tower contains the world. Its crown features flying buttresses that are purely decorative. In a Gothic cathedral, flying buttresses serve a structural purpose. They support the walls, transfer weight. But here, in a steel-framed building, they're unnecessary. The steel does all the work. So these buttresses are pure decoration, pure poetry, giving the skyscraper the look of a Gothic cathedral in the clouds, a spire reaching toward heaven. The Palmolive building featured the Lindbergh Beacon, a light so powerful it could be seen by pilots 200 miles away. Named after Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator. This beacon swept the sky, a rotating beam of light, visible from incredible distances, helping pilots navigate, marking Chicago's location, a lighthouse in the sky. During the mid-20th century, Ludwig Mies van der Rohe arrived in Chicago, a German architect fleeing Europe, bringing with him a new philosophy, the international style. This style rejected ornamentation, rejected historical references, believed in pure form, pure function. Mies had a famous saying, "Less is more. Strip away everything unnecessary, reveal the essential, create buildings of perfect proportion, perfect silence." Mies believed in using black steel and tinted glass, not white terracotta, not decorative elements, just steel, painted black or left to weather naturally, and glass, tinted to reduce glare, to create uniform facades. His buildings are monoliths, simple, severe, beautiful in their absolute simplicity. His 860 through 880 Lakeshore Drive apartments are icons of modernism. Two towers, standing side by the water, looking like two minimalist monoliths. Perfect rectangles, black steel, bronze tinted glass. No decoration, no ornamentation, just pure geometric form, standing silent against the sky and lake. The Miesian style relies on I-beams attached to the exterior. These beams, normally hidden inside a building, are exposed, visible, creating a pattern on the facade. Vertical lines repeating, creating rhythm. These beams aren't load-bearing in the traditional sense. The real structure is inside. But exposing them provides a sense of vertical rhythm, of order, of the building's true nature revealed. The Inland Steel building was the first skyscraper to use a stainless steel facade. Stainless steel doesn't rust, doesn't corrode, doesn't weather. It stays bright, reflective. The building reflects the Chicago sky in a soft satin finish. Clouds drift across the facade. The blue of the sky merges with the building. On overcast days, the building becomes grey. On sunny days, bright blue. The building changes, adapts, reflects its environment. It was also the first to have its structural columns on the outside. The columns, the vertical supports, are along the perimeter. This leaves the interior floors completely open, pillar-free. No columns interrupting the space. No obstructions. Just open floor plates where the interior can be arranged however needed. Walls can go anywhere. Offices can be any size. Complete flexibility. This created a floating feel for those inside. Nothing but glass between them and the horizon. Standing in an office on a high floor, you can see for miles. The lake stretches to the east. The city spreads in all directions. Nothing blocks the view. You feel suspended, floating in air, connected to the sky. The John Hancock Center, completed in 1969. This building uses an X-bracing system that is visible on the outside. Massive steel X's crossing the facade. These aren't decorative, they're structural. The X-bracing makes the building incredibly strong, allows it to resist wind, to stay stable even in the fierce winds that blow off Lake Michigan. These massive steel X's allow the building to sway slightly in the high winds. All tall buildings sway. They must. If they were completely rigid, they would crack, would break. So they flex, move, dance with the wind. The Hancock can sway several feet at the top. But this movement is slow, gentle, imperceptible to most people inside. On a windy day, a person on the 100th floor of the Hancock might see the water in their glass move slightly. Just a ripple, a tiny wave crossing the surface, a silent testament to the building's flexibility, to the fact that even a massive tower of steel and concrete is alive, is moving, is responding to forces we can barely feel. The Hancock's exterior is finished in black anodized aluminum. Anodizing creates a hard surface, resistant to corrosion. The black color absorbs light, doesn't reflect like glass or polished steel. This gives the building a somber, powerful presence. It stands dark against the sky. Solid, monumental, a black monolith rising from the lakefront. The high-altitude air around these towers is often 10 degrees cooler than street level. As you rise, the temperature drops. The air grows thinner, clearer. On the observation deck of a tall building, the wind is constant, stronger than at ground level. The air feels different, tastes different. You're in a different world up here, a world of wind and light and distance. The city below seems small, toy-like. The concerns of street level fade. Up here, there is only space, only sky, only the quiet sense of being elevated above everything. The skyscraper had evolved. From the home insurance building's simple steel frame, to Sullivan's decorated towers, to the Miesian glass boxes, to the structural expressionism of the Hancock. Each generation building on the last, each solving new problems, reaching higher, becoming more refined, more efficient, more daring. Chicago proved that cities could grow vertically, that density didn't mean darkness, that tall buildings, properly designed, could be beautiful, could be humane, could create livable, workable spaces in the sky. The city had mastered the art of building upward, and now we move into the modern era, where the ambitions grow even bolder, where the towers reach even higher. The Willis Tower, Formerly the Sears Tower. This building was the tallest building in the world for 25 years, standing at 1,450 feet. Let that height settle in your mind. Nearly a quarter of a mile into the sky. 110 stories. A city stacked vertically. From its top, on a clear day, you can see 4 states: Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan. The curve of the Earth becomes visible. The horizon bends. Its design is based on a bundled tube system. Imagine 9 square tubes, hollow columns, clustered together. Each tube different heights, some ending at 50 stories, some at 66, some at 90, and 2 rising the full 110 stories. This creates the building's distinctive, stepped profile. As you look up from the street, the building seems to rise in stages, stepping back, creating terraces in the sky. This design provides tremendous strength. The tubes support each other, brace each other, work together to resist wind and gravity. The steel used in the Willis Tower weighs as much as 20,000 mid-size cars. Picture that. 20,000 cars worth of steel, beams, columns, connections, all fitted together with precision, all working together. Yet despite this tremendous weight, this massive amount of material, the building feels airy and light from within. The windows are large, the views expansive. You don't feel the weight, you feel only the height, only the space, only the incredible distance between you and the ground. The Marina City Towers, often called the corn cobs because of their distinctive shape. These were designed by Bertrand Goldberg to be a city within a city. Everything you need contained in 2 towers. Apartments, offices, restaurants, a theater, a marina for boats, parking, shopping. The idea was you could live your entire life, work and play and rest, all within these 2 circular towers. These concrete towers feature a spiral parking ramp on the lower 19 floors. The cars are visible from the street, looking like a toy collection, arranged in perfect spirals. This was revolutionary. Usually parking is hidden, put in basements, concealed. But here, it's celebrated, made visible. The cars become part of the building's aesthetic, circling upward in their concrete spiral. The balconies of Marina City are semicircular. Each apartment has a balcony that curves out from the tower, providing 180-degree views of the Chicago River's gentle curves. Standing on one of these balconies, you can see up and down the river. Watch boats pass. See bridges open. Feel the wind coming off the water. You're not just looking at the city, you're floating above it, part of it, connected to the river and the urban landscape. The Aqua Tower, designed by Jean Gang. This building features undulating white concrete balconies that look like shimmering ripples on water. Each balcony is slightly different, extending different distances, creating an organic, flowing appearance. Like water frozen in motion, like waves captured in concrete. The building seems to move, to flow, even though it's completely still. This design isn't just for beauty, though it is beautiful. The waves serve a purpose. They break up the wind. Wind hitting a tall building creates turbulence, can cause the building to vibrate, can create uncomfortable conditions, but these undulating balconies disrupt the wind flow, break it up, reduce vibration. The building stands more stable, more comfortable. Beauty and engineering united. The glass on the Aqua Tower is fritted, covered in small dots. These dots make the glass visible to birds. Birds often fly into glass buildings. They see the reflection of sky and trees and think it's real. They strike the glass. But fritted glass, with its pattern of dots, is visible. Birds can see it. Avoid it. This is a quiet nod to the city's ecology, to the natural world that exists alongside the built environment, to the birds that migrate along the lakefront, engineering and nature in conversation. Millennium Park serves as the city's modern front yard, a public space, a gathering place, created on former rail yards and parking lots, now transformed into gardens, performance spaces, art installations. At the heart of the park sits the iconic Cloud Gate, known to everyone as the Bean. This massive sculpture, this impossible object, draws millions of visitors each year. Cloud Gate is made of 168 stainless steel plates, each plate carefully shaped, welded together with such precision that the seams are invisible to the human eye. You can walk around the entire sculpture, run your hand along its surface, and you cannot find the welds, cannot detect where one plate ends and another begins. The surface is continuous, perfect, seamless. The surface of the bean is polished to a mirror finish. It reflects everything: the skyline, the clouds, the people walking beneath it. The reflections distort, curve, loop back on themselves. You can see yourself, see the city, see the sky, all twisted and merged in this liquid metal surface. It's disorienting, dreamlike. You're seeing reality transformed, bent, made strange and new. The Pritzker Pavilion, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. This outdoor concert venue features massive sails of brushed stainless steel that billow over the stage. These sails aren't flat. They curve, twist, rise and fall, like fabric frozen in wind, like metal made liquid and then solidified. Gary's signature style, organic forms created with industrial materials. Chaos made beautiful through precision engineering. The pavilion's sound system is hidden in a trellis of steel pipes that spans the entire lawn. You sit on the grass, and above you, stretching across the sky, is this geometric framework. Hidden speakers distribute sound evenly, creating a surround sound experience that feels like being inside a concert hall. Even though you're outside, even though you're in an open park, the acoustics are perfect. The J. Pritzker Pavilion's trellis ensures that even someone sitting 600 feet away can hear a soft violin solo with perfect clarity. Distance doesn't matter. The sound reaches everyone, equally, clearly. A democratic approach to sound. Everyone gets the same experience, the same quality. Whether you're in the first row or far back on the lawn, the St. Regis Chicago, the city's third tallest building, composed of 3 interconnected towers that wave in and out. The towers aren't straight, they curve slightly, creating a dynamic silhouette, a building that seems to dance, that refuses to be a simple rectangle, that embraces complexity, movement, life. Its glass is a gradient of blue-green hues, designed to mimic the shifting colors of Lake Michigan. The lake changes color constantly. Deep blue on sunny days, gray-green when overcast, turquoise in certain lights. The building captures this. Each floor a slightly different shade. The tower becomes a vertical representation of the lake. Water made vertical. Nature translated into architecture. The Chicago Architecture Center now houses a model of the city, over 40,000 tiny buildings, each one 3D printed, each one accurately representing a real structure. You can stand over this model, see the entire city laid out, understand its patterns, its density, its growth. It's like being a giant, looking down on the whole metropolis, seeing how everything connects, how the grid organizes chaos, how the lake shapes development. Modern Chicago architecture focuses on sustainability, on environmental responsibility. Many buildings feature green roofs, roofs covered not with tar or tiles, but with grass and wildflowers. These living roofs absorb rainwater, reduce runoff, provide insulation, create habitat for birds and insects. They turn rooftops, traditionally wasted space, into productive ecosystems, into gardens in the sky. The city's Riverwalk is a series of outdoor rooms carved into the limestone and concrete banks. Each section has a different character, one for dining, one for quiet sitting, one for kayak access. These spaces offer a quiet place to watch the water flow, to sit beside the river that founded the city, to connect with the force that made Chicago possible. The river still flows, still serves, still shapes the city's character. The Vista Tower features a blow-through floor at the 83rd level, an empty space, an entire floor with no walls, no windows, just open air. Wind can pass through the building. This reduces swaying, reduces wind pressure. The building breathes. Literally, air flows through it. This is engineering at its most elegant, solving problems by working with forces rather than against them. Chicago's architecture is a living museum. Walk down any street, and you might see a 130-year-old brick building sitting peacefully next to a 90-story glass tower. The old and new coexist. Neither dominates, neither hides. They stand together. Different eras, different technologies, different philosophies, all part of the same city, all contributing to the same skyline. Every night, the city's skyline is a silent light show. The crowns of buildings glow in colors that change with the seasons. Red and green during holidays, pink for breast cancer awareness, blue and orange for the bears, purple for various causes. The skyline communicates, celebrates, mourns, acknowledges. The buildings become beacons of shared experience, shared identity, shared pride. The sound of modern Chicago architecture is subtle. The distant hum of the wind moving through steel cables, the soft lap of the lake against the concrete piers, the whisper of HVAC systems, the almost imperceptible creaking of buildings swaying in wind. These sounds are quiet, peaceful, the city at its most calm. As you drift off, imagine the city beneath you, not as a collection of buildings, but as a masterpiece of human will, rising forever from the blue clay toward the stars, from the swampy beginnings, from the wild leeks and olive green river. Chicago rose, lifted itself, rebuilt itself, invented itself, created forms never before seen, solved problems never before encountered, pushed higher, reached farther, dreamed bigger. The jack screws turning in synchronization, the balloon frames rising quickly, the great fire consuming, the blank slate waiting, the Chicago school inventing, Sullivan's terracotta flowing, Wright's horizontal lines spreading, the steel frame soaring, the Miesian simplicity, the bundled tubes, the undulating balconies, the green roofs, the living museum, all of it, all of this incredible story, contained in one city, built on glacial clay, cooled by lake breezes, organized by a grid, connected by a reversed river. Chicago stands as testament to what humans can accomplish when they refuse to accept limitation, when they look at problems and see opportunities, when they take new technologies and find beauty in them. When they build not just for today, but for generations to come. When they create not just buildings, but poetry in steel and glass and concrete. Rest now in the knowledge that human ingenuity can transform swamps into skylines, can lift cities, can reverse rivers, can build towers that touch clouds, can create beauty that endures, can dream and make those dreams real, solid, permanent. Sleep peacefully, surrounded by the gentle presence of these towers, these monuments to persistence, to innovation, to the belief that we can build something better, something taller, something that will last. Good night from the Sleepy City Travelers Channel. May your dreams be filled with rising buildings, with light reflecting off polished steel, with the quiet satisfaction of problems solved and challenges met. May you rest as Chicago rests, proud of what has been built, ready for what comes next. Sleep well.